TriStar Pictures is planning to produce a Godzilla movie in the United States next year. How do you feel about this?
The film will probably be much more interesting than the Godzilla movies that are being produced in Japan. I'm glad.
I could spend a whole video just talking about the movie that 1998's Godzilla isn't. It started production as soon as TriStar Pictures acquired the rights for the character in 1992, after Henry G. Saperstein, the mind behind Kong vs. Godzilla, received Toho's blessing to finally pitch the film for American studios, something he had been trying for nearly a decade. And even after that, it remained in the limbo for some time, having had a whole different script from the final one written, director John DeBone attached, and Stan Winston himself designed both the title creature and its antagonist, the Griffin. All of this fell apart when Sony refused to approve the initial budget proposal for the project, prompting DeBone to leave it. While the budgetary excuse was true, it was closely tied to the fact that the studio didn't believe at all in the original project, which was closer to the Japanese movies in style. Sony would feel much easier when Roland Emmerich showed them his vision for the flick, which didn't rely on any existing script, mostly because he didn't even like Godzilla in the first place, and only accepted doing the film because of the creative freedom he was granted. But there truly was a desire to make this Godzilla a beast of its own, which was shared by co-writer Jim Devlin and creature designer Patrick Tato.
It's Sotopoulos.
Yeah, this guy. It sucks that this joke is the most memorable part of the film. Anyway, whatever their reasons for it, the crew's drive to distinguish this creation from its predecessors would be a very conscious decision through the movie's production, resulting in a final product that has since been disowned both by fans and Toho. Despite centering around a giant monster created by radiation that exits the sea to attack a large city, it would be easy to pass this movie as anything but a Godzilla flick, if it wasn't for the inevitability of associating anything with the description I just made with the character, that is. Godzilla here is remarkably fast, pregnant, and doesn't breathe radiation. He does breathe fire, but try convincing the fans this is the same thing. Its design is also odd, more animalistic than any other iteration of the character we have seen so far, or ever since. It really makes me think Tomoyuki Tanaka was right to veto animal-inspired elements in Godzilla's design, arguing that the creature was not an animal but a monster. And to be fair, the filmmakers here explicitly stated that their Godzilla was an animal rather than a monster, and tried to make it look and act the part. But I can't stop thinking how derivative, even if nice looking, is Zilla's design. And if the changes in design and behavior weren't enough to add insult to the injury, the monster is rendered in one of the ugliest, poor looking CGI to ever stain a big budget feature film. Its pawns didn't fare any better either. While researching, I did find out that the mini-Zillas were supposed to be played by guys in costume. And I can't see these costumes anywhere. There's the mechanical heads here and there, but all the full body shots of the creatures were done in CGI, which leaves me to wonder why did they even bother to make the costumes in the first place. Maybe they didn't look as good as the filmmakers originally intended, which, judging by the behind-the-scenes footage, doesn't seem to be the case. Another possibility is that the CGI for the monsters was so raw and jarring when compared to the animatronics that they decided to cover everything with the digital effects. Or maybe they honest to God thought this looked better than the suits, which again doesn't seem likely considering that apparently the special effects for this movie were finished 2 days before its release. I didn't even know this was doable. The weird thing is that this film costs a lot of money, but I don't see the money on screen. I imagine that back then, when CGI was a novel technology, it was probably more expensive to be done regardless of the end result. Still, they will have to have done a lot of stuff we never actually see on screen to spend so much, corroborating my theory that several practical effects were just CGI over. If there is something from the Godzilla mythos that was kept untouched, was its origin. Sorta. Instead of being a dinosaur mutated from radiation fallout of American nuclear tests in the Pacific, Zilla is an iguana mutated from radiation fallout of French nuclear tests in the Pacific. However, unlike other Godzilla reboots, remakes, whatever, the story quickly drops any nuclear warning pretension or relation between the monster and atomic energy as it moves forward. Instead, by the midpoint, it shifts gears into a hunt to find out where's the nest of the creature and destroy it before it gives birth to a new species of super reptiles that could overrun the planet. Yeah, I know, the third act of the movie shamelessly rips off Jurassic Park, and it was probably the main reason the film's speech from pretty much the very start is about the rise of a new breed of dominant species on the planet.
You're implying that a group composed entirely of female animals will breed?
Yes. We're looking at a completely incipient creature. The dawn of a new species. The first of its kind.
Oh, there it is.
But it's funny to note that this would not be the last American-made Godzilla flick to embrace both this plotline and this speech.
We are the infection. But like all living organisms, the Earth unleashed a fever to fight this infection. Its original and rightful rulers, the Titans.
And even the most recent Jurassic something or other went full on with this concept, more so than any other in the franchise.
We're causing our own extinction. Too many red lines have been crossed. These creatures were here before us. And if we're not careful, they're going to be here after.
What I'm trying to say is that ripping off a better, more successful movie came as a bonus for using a common plot device for this kind of film. That being said, the last 40 minutes or so of Godzilla, yes, the final act is some good 40 minutes, are still a chore to watch. If I had to pinpoint why, it would probably due to the protagonist's absurd plot armor that allowed them just to walk through the mini-Zillas who only seem wanting to startle the heroes. The whole film is a mess, actually. Godzilla problems or not. I mean, they can't even make fun of people right. The characters of incompetent New York Mayor Ebert and his bumbling assistant, Gene, were clearly shots at movie critics Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, who penned Emmerich and Devlin's previous movies. Ebert would later remark how the film took it easy on them, since he was at least expecting to be squashed by the monster just for nothing of the sort to happen to his character. Yeah, the insult was so light that the insult managed to turn it around against the ones insulting. And I didn't want to break down the whole plot for you guys, but okay, here it goes. So the story revolves around Ferris Bueller, who in this movie answers by Nick Tatopoulos, finally strengthening up his life and getting a sweet job at the Nuclear Regulation Committee and overseeing the growth of worms at Chernobyl when the US Army recruits him to help understanding what is the thing eating tuna and moving towards the American East Coast. Arriving at New York, however, he crosses paths with Audrey, his former college sweetheart and absolute bitch. It's actually her who intentionally crosses paths with the guy in an attempt to get a scoop on Godzilla, using their past relationship and the feelings Nick still nourishes for her as he steps into ascending the hierarchy of the TV station where she works. And she does this multiple times, leading Nick to get fired by the army at a moment when he has just discovered something crucial about the monster. I would be more infuriated with the character if not for the fact that these two are so damn adorable on screen together. Here we have two actors who are trying their best to act, but they simply can't, and it's so cute.
Audrey. You're right. 8 years is a long time. Can I make you a cup of tea?
When we broke up and I first came out to New York, I was so sure I'd make it, but I haven't. That's why I needed the story so bad. I just couldn't tell you I'm a failure.
Even if they have nothing in common and spend zero time together through the movie, it's one of those noticed films where they toss the relationship part into the backstory, I still get behind these two dorks ending up together. And that's the only good thing I can say about this movie. No, hold on. There is something else, but this one is in a weird, muddy spot. Because the filmmaker's intent of treating Godzilla as a real animal instead of a giant monster is weirdly efficient. However, even though this rationalizes the creature's behavior and stuff, the human characters never seem affected by this fact, save for a brief moment when Matthew Broderick's character gets really close and personal to the creature, and again at the end when it dies. This death comes right after the monster has chased the heroes all over Manhattan for having killed their babies. And if you think this set piece sounds a little off in terms of tone, it's nothing when compared to the actual moment when Zilla kicks the bucket. The whole thing seems both celebratory and tragic at the same time, giving the whole scene a very bittersweet feel. I say the scene lands exactly because of the tragic feel to it. That comes after another pretty emotional moment. And it's off exactly because nothing ever comes of it. No reflection from the heroes, no moment of sorrow, anything. They just start celebrating right after the fact. And at the end of the day, this is exactly the main problem with the whole Godzilla as an animal approach. It keeps clashing with the desire of the movie to show it smashing buildings and whatnot. Whew, okay, that's it. I'm done overanalyzing the bad movie. It certainly doesn't deserve it, but I did what I could. Godzilla was poorly received all across the board and barely broke even at the box office. This ruined Tristar's plan of producing a trilogy with the character, and will take 16 years for another American studio to release their own take on Godzilla. Today, it is mostly brought up as a joke by movie enthusiasts who like to tear this flick apart for being either a stain in the character's filmography or just a poor film in general. And I honestly can't say any of these claims are inaccurate. It's funny how things are though, because just like most other Godzilla movies, this one is strongly attached to people's nostalgia. And as time goes by, and the fanbase gets renovated with new blood that has fonder memories of this particular installment, the opinion on it starts to mellow out. Hell, Roland Emmerich himself says that this is the favorite of his movies among children. So you can see how, while still polarizing, this Godzilla is nowadays seen in a less aggressive light, if not the movie itself, at least the character, who would go on to be established as a different entity than Koji by Toho, appearing in comics, books, movies, and getting its own TV show that is much more fondly remembered by the fans. But some's lost while certainly others win. Toho saw the failure of the American Godzilla as a perfect opportunity to relaunch the franchise. Attending the audience demands, Godzilla 2000 would set the stage for a new era of the character's history, and a turbulent one at that too.